Okay, yeah. Marhaba, salam. This is IGCSE Math Term 2 Week 7 periodic. We have in the material, we have 4.1 to 4.3. Uh, yeah, it's very easy. It's skill of derivatives. Uh, yeah, we'll start. This is 4.1. If you guys remember the tangent stuff, you have to find the equation and the minimum and maximum. Yeah, that's what's coming. فthey'd tell you find the tangent to the curve. يعني 6x squared minus 2x minus 3. They tell you find the tangent to the curve. يعني find the equation for it. If you remember and I gave you some steps, I'll remind you. Let's say I gave you, let's use the same one. 6x squared minus 2x minus 3. 6x squared minus 2x minus 3. This is our equation. Y equals 6x squared minus 2x minus 3. And they tell you مثلا at x equals 2. Find the equation to the tangent. Uh, if you guys remember, the first thing I told you was find your y coordinate. Find your y coordinate. Okay, that's the first thing I told you. The second thing I told you is obviously derive. Okay, and the third thing I told you is plug in your x to dy over dx. dy over dx يعني is your derivative. Okay, why? Because that gets you your slope. Gets your slope. Then you find your b, then it's y equals mx plus b, right? You find your b by just substituting. Okay, but this question one is interesting uh, because they didn't give you any x coordinate. They told you this tangent is parallel to the line y equals 10x minus 3. Okay, if you remember in grade 8, when you have two lines that are parallel, that means they have the same slope. So in this case, uh, the slope of our tangent is going to be 10 because it's parallel to the line 10x minus 3. Okay, so you immediately know the slope is 10. Okay, so we got the slope and we can't really find the y coordinate because they didn't give us any x. So let's start deriving, yeah? Let's derive 6x squared minus 2x minus 3. You'll get multiply the exponent by the coefficient 12x, reduce it by 1. 1 minus 2 is minus 2 like this. Okay, and obviously x goes because the exponent was to the power of 1, and this one doesn't have an exponent, so you cancel it out. This is just the basics of deriving. dy over dx is 12x minus 2. Okay, you know that once you plug in your x coordinate to your derivative, you get the slope, right? You get the slope. So 12 times x minus 2, you get the slope, right? But now we don't know what the x is. And like I told you before, you need to have an x comma y if you want to find the equation. Okay, if you look at our steps, you need to find your y coordinate. Okay, how can you find your y coordinate if you don't have your x? You have to find your x somehow. Okay, but what you have to do here is, once you plug in your x coordinate to your dy over dx, you're gonna get the slope. We don't have the x coordinate, but we do have the slope. So you know that 12x minus 2 will be equal to 10. And if you take 2 to the other side, it will be 12x equals 12 and x equals 1. So that means you know your x coordinate is 1. So at x equals 1. Now, can I find my y coordinate? Yes, you can. Of course you can. Okay. Uh, some people here, they're going to skip the y coordinate part. They'll say, okay, I have my x, I have my slope, y equals 10x. But you know, it's y equals ax plus b, or sometimes you say mx plus b, whatever you guys want. Okay. You need to find b, and also that's what they're asking for here. They want b. Okay, you can't find the equation of the line without knowing b, and to know b you have to substitute your x and y, and if you don't have the y coordinate, of course you can't solve for b. So what do you have to do? You need to find your y coordinate. So you go back to step 1, which is finding your y coordinate. How do you find your y coordinate? You plug it in to your original equation, which is 6x. Let me erase. 6x squared minus 2x minus 3. You plug in x equals 1, so it will be 6 times 1 squared minus 2 times 1 minus 3. You'll get 6 minus 2 minus 3, which is 6 minus 5, which is 1. So your y is 1. So now, over here, let's substitute. Y is 1 equals 10 times x, which is 1, because x is 1, y equals 1, plus b. You'll get 1 equals 10 plus b. How do you find b? Take 10 to the other side. B equals 1 minus 10. B equals minus 9. Okay? So what is your equation for the line? Y equals 10x minus 9. B is minus 9. The steps, memorize them. But this one's a bit tricky. The rest are way easier, Saraha. This one's a bit tricky because they gave you the slope directly without giving you the x, okay? I'd understand why you'd find it a bit tricky, but at the end of the day, it's just using the steps. Here, they gave you the x and they gave you the y, so you can skip the first step. What's the step after finding your x and y? Deriving and plugging in your x to get your slope, right? Okay, so what do you do now? We derive. Let's derive 4x squared. 2 times 4 is 8. Reduce your exponent by 1 becomes x, and then 1 times minus 3 is minus 3. Reduce your exponent, x goes. Okay, so your dy over dx is 8x minus 3. Okay, how do we after deriving we have to find our slope, right? How do we find our slope? We have to plug in the x into your dy over dx. You get 8 times 1 minus 3, which is 5, because 8 times 1 is 8 minus 3 is 5. So your slope is 5. Okay, slope is 5. So we get y equals 5x plus b. This is our line. Do we know what b is? How do we find b? We have to find b by plugging in your y and x. Our y is 1, our x is 1, so 1 equals 5 times 1 plus b. B equals, take your 5 to the other side, 1 minus 5, b equals minus 4. That's it. You just follow the steps. And some questions, they're very easy. They just ask for the gradient. So like, uh, I'll get to those. Uh, it's just following the steps. Like here, what is the slope? They just want the slope. Okay, but okay, you're gonna tell me, Walid, they didn't give me the x coordinate, and how am I gonna find the slope? They didn't give me the x coordinate. Okay, I will show you guys know to find the slope you have to derive, right? So let's derive this. It will be 4 times 3, 12, x reduce the exponent by 1, 3. 1 times 11 is 11. X goes because the exponent is reduced, and minus 1 doesn't have an exponent, so you remove it. So this is your dy over dx. Now at this step, you have to plug in your x coordinate into your dy over dx, but we don't have the dy over dx. Okay, but they're saying at the point of intersection with the y-axis. Okay, in graphs, whenever you have like this, this is the y, this is the x-axis, right? At the point of intersection with the y-axis over here, how much is x? Obviously, x is 0, right? Wherever you go, if you're on the y-axis, x equals 0. So what do you do here? You substitute x equals 0. So 12 times 0 plus 11, which is 11. So the slope is 11. Okay? That's how you do it. The questions are going to be tricky. They won't give them to you straightforward, Sarah. No, expect to see questions like these in the exam. But in the AMSs, they never got questions like this. Okay, x squared minus 2x minus 8 crosses the x-axis at 2 points. Okay, one point has a positive abscissa and one has a negative abscissa. What is the slope of the tangent where it crosses the negative abscissa? Okay, abscissa means x. Okay, look, you guys know x squared minus 2x minus 8. When they say it crosses the x-axis, you guys know, again, this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. You can go here and here. When it crosses the x-axis over here and over here, y is 0, right? So when we say crosses the x-axis, they're basically asking you to solve it. Okay, equals 0. And you guys know when you solve x squared minus 2x minus 8, it's a quadratic function. Whenever you solve any quadratic function, you'll always get two solutions. That's why they're saying it has a positive and a negative. Okay, so if you solve x squared minus 2x minus 8, you factor, you get, I think it's 2, you get x minus 4, x plus 2, which gives you two solutions, which is x equals 4 and x equals minus 2. You can do this on a calculator, by the way, if you don't want to factor. So we got the positive abscissa and we got the negative abscissa. They're saying, what is the slope of the tangent where the curve crosses the x-axis at the negative abscissa? So they want to use x equals negative 2. They want to use x equals negative 2. How do we find the slope? We have to derive. Let's find dy over dx. It equals, derive it. 2 times 1 is 2. Reduce the exponent by 1 becomes x. And then minus 1 times 2 is minus 2. Reduce this exponent. And this 8 doesn't have an exponent. So your dy over dx is 2x minus 2. How do we find the slope? We plug in minus 2. Plug in your x. It becomes 2 times minus 2 minus 2. So it will become minus 4 minus 2, which is minus 6. Okay? Question 5. Okay. This is the thing. deriving with fractions. Okay, deriving with fractions, it's very easy. It's very similar. Okay, when you want to divide, when you want to derive a fraction, you ignore the fraction. Okay, you ignore the fraction. And when you have 2x minus 1 and x plus 7, you're gonna tell me, well, how am I meant to derive this? You know, it's two products. The way I did it is I expanded it. Okay, I don't like solving like this. Maybe there's another method, but the way I'm gonna teach you is expand. What do I mean by expand? Yani multiply it to get the full thing. So let's do it. Uh, let's expand 2x minus 1 into x plus 7. This is grade 7 stuff. Yani 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 7 is 14x. Minus 1 times x is minus x. Minus 1 times 7 is minus 7. That will be 2x squared. 14x minus x is 13x, so plus 13x minus 7. Okay, and this is over 3. But so we need to find the derivative of this. And I'm telling you, when you want to find the derivative of any fraction, you ignore the denominator, you ignore the fraction. So you just derive this, and then at the end, after you derive, you put it over 3. I'll show you now. So let's derive 2x squared plus 13x minus 7. Let's cover the over 3, right? Let's cover it. Okay. 2x squared, derive it. 2 times 2 is 4. Reduce the exponent by 1 becomes x. 1 times 13 is 3. As the 13, 1 times 13 is 13. Reduce exponent, it goes, and minus 7 doesn't have an x, so you don't take it. For your dy over dx is 4x plus 13. But we had an over 3, right? We had over 3. So what do? After deriving, you just put 4x plus 13, you put it over 3. So your derivative is 4x plus 13 over 3. So just derive normally, and then put in whatever fraction you had. Okay? And now, how do we find the slope? You plug in your x coordinate into your dy over dx, or your derivative. X equals negative 1, so 4 times negative 1 plus 13 over 3. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4 plus 13 over 3. Negative 4 plus 13 is 9. This is a 3 over here. Okay, over 3 gets you 3. So your slope is, or gradient is 3. Okay, that's how you do it. I think there's more questions like this. Question 6. Yeah, here also. Okay, again, when you have binomials or monomials or whatever, when you're multiplying stuff in brackets, expand. It makes it way easier. Okay, minus 2x times minus 3x squared minus minus, you get 6x cubed. Minus 2x times minus 4x is plus 8x squared. Okay, now after you expand, we derive. How do you derive this? 3 times 6 is 18. Reduce your exponent by 1, becomes squared. 2 times 8 is 16. Reduce exponent by 1 comes x. Now, how do we find the gradient or slope? You plug in your negative 1. So 18 times minus 1 squared plus 16 times minus 1. Be careful here. Minus 1 squared is 1. It's positive 1. Okay, so it's 18 times 1. But 16 times minus 1 is minus 16. Okay, why is it positive 1? I think you guys all, this is times. I think you guys all know when you square a negative number, it becomes positive. Or not only square, whenever the exponent is even, so 2 or 4 or 6 or 8, then the negative number becomes positive. Okay, it's absolute value of the whatever. المهم, it's positive because it's a negative number squared, which is obviously positive. 18 times 1 is 18, minus 16 is 2. Okay, that's it. Question 7, I think this is the hard one. There was one hard one, I remember. Yeah, I think this one. Okay, this one's a bit tricky, okay? It follows the same rule of deriving, except when we derived with a fraction last time, we only had a number in the denominator, we didn't have an x in the denominator. Okay, so what you have to do is, if you have an x in the denominator, you have to take it up. Okay, you can't keep the x down. And I'm pretty sure you guys all know how to take exponents up and down in a fraction from grade 9. If you remember, we had 7 x to the power of 2 times 3y to the power of negative 3, and down we had 7y to the power of negative 4. If you remember what we used to do, we used to take the negative powers, we used to switch them. Why? Because when you switch a power up or down, it changes the sign. So this would become, if you remember, negative 3 would go down, So it will be 7x squared times 3, and this y to the power negative 4 goes up, so it will be y to the power of 4, and it will be 7. The y negative 3 goes down, becomes positive 3. Okay, this is just a recap in grade 9, just so you know what I'm about to do. So when you switch a power up or down, it changes the sign of the power. So in this case here, let me write it out so it's a bit bigger. 7 is 6x to the power 4 plus 24x cubed over 3x squared. If I want to take this x squared up, what does it become? It becomes x to the power of negative 2. Okay, but what do? Do I just keep it like this? No, you have to put this x to the power of negative 2 and distribute it into your numerator. Okay, so distribute it into 6x to the power of 4 plus 24x cubed. Okay, and down we have over 3. Can you derive right now? No, you can't. You have to expand this, right? So expand it. X to the power negative 2 times 6x to the power of 4. You guys know when you have x to the power of 3 times x to the power of negative 1, you just do 3 minus 1, you get x squared. So in this case, minus 2 and 4, it will be 6x squared, because 4 minus 2 plus 4 is 2. Okay, and then minus 2 and 3, you get minus 2 plus 3 is just going to be 1, so 24x to the power of 1, but you don't write it. Again, for those who are confused, if the power is negative, like here, when you put x to the power 3 times x to the power negative 1, you get x squared, because 3 minus 1. In this case, 4 minus 2, you get 2. 3 minus 2, you get 1, but you don't write the 1. So 6x squared plus 24x over 3. So now, I can derive this. How do we derive it when you have a number in the denominator? You derive normally, and then you put the answer over that denominator. So 6x squared, 2 times 6 is 12. Reduce your exponent by 1, it's x. 1 times 24 is 24. So 24, and then the x goes because you reduce it by 1 over 3. So this is your dy over dx. How do we find the gradient? You have to plug in your x equals 3. So it will be 12 times 3 plus 24 over 3. You get 36 plus 24, which is 60, I think. 60 over 3, which is 20. Okay. 8. This question, how many questions? 16. Ugh, okay. Same thing over here, except you have two fractions. So you derive this one and you derive this one, and then you put it over the fraction. So let's derive x to the power of 6 over 3 minus 3x to the 8 over 4. How do you derive this? I told you ignore the fractions for now and then put it over the fraction. 6 times 1, because 1 is the coefficient of x, is going to be 6. Reduce your exponent by 1, comes 5. And then we derive this, so you put it over 3. Now, 8 times 8 times minus 3 is minus. Actually, no, keep it 8 times 3, because the minus is outside. 8 times 3 is 24, and then becomes x to the 7, because you reduce it by 1, over 4. They're saying at x equals negative 1, right? X equals negative 1. So 6 times negative 1 to the power of 5 over 3 minus 24 times negative 1 to the power of 7 over 4. You can do this on a calculator, but I'm just going to do it here because I don't have a calculator beside me now. 6 times negative 1 to the power 5 is negative 1 because it's an odd exponent, it stays negative. So it'll be negative 6 over 3 minus 24 times negative 1 because it's an odd exponent. It's going to stay negative, come minus 24 over 4. Okay, minus 6 over 3 is minus 2. Minus 24 over 4 is minus 6. So it will be minus 2 plus 6, which is 4. Okay, over here. Question 7. As a 9. What's the gradient? Okay, these are easy. What's the gradient? How do you do it? You have to find the derivative and then plug it in. Okay, this is put it in standard form. I like to keep the biggest exponent at the start. So it will be 3x squared plus 4. Okay, 4x. I don't like solving like this. And find the derivative. 2 times 3 6. Reduce exponent by 1 x. 1 times 4 is 4. And then reduce the exponent, it goes. Okay, so this is your dy over dx. Plug in x equals 4. You get 6 times 4 plus 4, which is 28. Okay. Question 10. What is the gradient of 3x plus 4? Okay, same thing. You have to derive and then plug in the x. Derive this, you get 4 times 3, 12. reduce the exponent by 1 becomes 3, 2 times 2, 4, reduce the exponent by 1 becomes x, 1 times -4 is -4, reduce the exponent, it goes. Okay, plug in -1, you get 12 times -1 cube plus 4 times -1 minus 4. Okay, 12 times -1 cubed is going to be -12 because -1 cubed, it stays negative because it's an odd exponent. 4 times -1 is -4, and -4 again, you get -20. Yeah, -20. Question 11. These gradient questions, they came every AMS, and يعني haram if you got them wrong because it's so easy. يعني, like, look here, you just derive 3 times 4, 12, x comes squared. Okay, because you reduce the exponent, and then plug in -2. 12 times -2 squared, you get 12 times +4 because it's an odd, it's an even exponent, so it becomes positive. So 12 times 4, 48. That's it. Yani, it's what, 2, 3 steps that are very easy. It's not like they're long steps, and people would still get them wrong. Yeah, y equals x to the power of 12 with x equals 1. Derive 12 times 1 is 12. Reduce the exponent to 1. It comes 12 to the power 12x to the power of 11. Plug in 1 becomes 12 times 1 to the power of 11, which is 12 times 1, which is 12. Question 13. Oh, okay. The gradient. Ah, you have to find the slope. Okay, the gradient of the curve at x equals 0 is equal to 2. Okay, أول شيء at x equals 0, there's no line. Okay, ما في line. It's like if you want the line here, the slope is actually 0. Okay, because it crosses x equals 0. المهم, part A is wrong. There's no line. The curve at x equals 2 is this. The gradient at x equals 2 is 3. So x equals 2. This is the line. Okay. Uh, the slope is rise over run. Okay, it's rise over run. Yani, other people for this question they might do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to know the gradient. Okay, بس أنا صراحة the easiest way I saw it, it's rising by 3. Look, it's going up from this point to this point. It's rising by 3, and it's running 1, which is 3 over 1, which is 3. This is originally how the slope is, by the way, rise over run. But they, as a formula, rise over run is y2 minus y1. If you want to do y2 minus y1, y2 is over here at 3 minus y1, which is over here at 0, over x2, which is over here at 2, minus x1, which is over here at 1. You get 3 over 1, which is 3. So use it both ways. They don't matter. It's the same thing. And x equals -2 is also is equal to the gradient of the curve at x equals -2 is equal to the gradient at x equals 2. If you look at the gradient at x equals -2, I mean, like, you can see it. It's obviously the same, right? If you want to prove it, again, you can do rise over run, or you can do it's just small. You can do y2 y1 over x2 minus x1. Again, see, it's running by 1, so run over rise, which is 3 squares, so 3 over 1, which is 3. Or if you want y2 minus y1, let's do y2 minus y1. y2 over here is at 2. y1 over here is at -1, so minus 1 over the run. X2 is over here at -1. X1 is over here at -2. So you'll get 2 minus 1 is 3. -1 minus 2 is 1, so 3. Okay, that's it. Let me look at part D. The gradient of the curve at x equals -2 is negative. Okay, we just found it's +3, and obviously it's not negative because it's going up. Okay, if any line is going up, okay, the slope is positive, or the gradient is positive. Gradient and slope mean the same thing, and just in case anybody is confused. This question, I think it came in the AMS. Yeah, at abscissa 2, so they want the slope of this line. There's obviously a point over here at 1 comma 4, and there's obviously a point over here at 3 comma minus 4. 3 comma minus 4. How do we find the slope? Y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So take 4 minus minus 4 over 1 minus 3. 4 minus 4 is -8. 1 minus 3 is, no, +8. 1 minus 3 is -2, which is -4 is the gradient. Okay. Question 15. The gradient of the curve at A is a fraction of, okay, they want the slope of this line at A. They want the slope of this one. Okay, I think you can find the slope easily. You have a point here, -4 comma 3, and you have another point over here. Let me put it in red so you can see. This is -4 comma 3, and this is 0 comma -3. Okay, do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It will be 3 minus minus 3 over minus 4 minus 0. It will become 6 over minus 4. Okay, this is not in simplest form. Okay, so it's gonna be 3 over minus 2. They want, when they say no common factor other than 1, that means they want simplest form. Okay, simplest form. Okay, it's a over b. What is the value of a times b? So what's the value of 3 times negative 2? Negative 6. Okay, that's it. Question 16. Uh, okay, this one they want the equation of the tangent, but we have to use the steps. أول شيء plug in, find your y. How do we find our y? We plug it into the original one. It will be 2 cubed plus 4 times 2 squared plus 10, which is 8 plus 4, 16 plus 10. You get 24, 34 as your y. I think y equals 34. Yeah. So your point is 2 comma 34 because they said x equals 2. Now we find the derivative. We have to find the slope by finding the derivative and plugging in the x. How do we derive x cubed plus 4x squared plus 10? 3 times 1 is 3. X reduce it by 1 squared. 2 times 4 is 8. Reduce x1 by 1x. And 10 doesn't have an x, so you just don't do it. Okay. What you plug in your x now? Plug in 2. It's 3 times 2 squared plus 8 times 2. You get 3 times 4, 12 plus 16, which is 28. So your slope is 28. So we got y equals 28x plus b. How do you find b? Substitute your x and y. Y is 34 equals 34. Yeah. 34 equals 28 times x is 2 plus b. 56 plus b equals 34. 56 to the other side. B equals 34 minus 50 minus 22, which is, so we got 28x minus b, which is 22. Okay, minus 22. That's it for 4.1. هلا 4.2. Okay, uh, before moving on to 4.2, uh, a lot of people are questioning whether we'll have written. Honestly, I think they'll give us written. Probably like something easy and derive or something. Because yani, they got the math teachers, they all got an email from the head of math, the regional, that every math exam in term 2 will have a written part. But يعني people are saying in the material it doesn't say we're gonna have written. I don't know. But be prepared for a written. يعني always be prepared. Obviously, I don't think we're gonna have graphs. Maybe for 4.3 because there's some speed in it. I think they'll give us a question about that. But يعني be prepared for a written part just in case. Uh, yeah. Okay. 4.2 is about the minimum and maximum. Okay. Very easy. If you remember my way, to find your minimum and maximum, you equate dy over dx. To find the critical points, قصدي, to find your turning points, you equate dy over dx to 0. So over here, when you're talking about the local extreme values or the critical points or the turning points or whatever you want to call them, you have to equate dy over dx to 0. And to find dy over dx, you have to derive 3 times minus 8 is minus 24. X becomes squared because you reduced it by 1 plus 24 because 1 times 24 and x goes خلاص. And minus 10 doesn't have an x. So you equate this dy over dx to 0. Okay, how you solve this? Some people factor out 24. Some people take minus 24 x squared to the right. I don't know, and I'll just take minus 24 x squared to the right. It becomes positive 24 x squared. I divide by 24 on both sides. It becomes 1 equals x squared. And you know, x equals plus minus radical 1. Please, if we have written part, please don't make the mistake of putting x equals radical 1 and putting 1. Please don't. Please. Yani, it's such a stupid mistake and yani, it's not worth it to lose marks on. Okay, so you'll get x equals 1 and x equals minus 1. Okay, so they give you 1, you put minus 1. Question 2. Okay, consider the function given by 3x squared minus 5x plus 7. Okay, أول شيء find your derivative, find your turning points, and know if it's a minimum or a maximum. Okay, أول شيء find your turning points. Okay, or sorry, find your dy over dx. So how do you find your derivative? Dy over dx. Let's derive 2 times 3, 6. Reduce x1 by 1, 6x. 1 times minus 5 is minus 5. The x goes and 7 goes. So your dy over dx is 6x minus 5. So you can take this point. Okay, now you want to know the turning points or the critical points. Okay, How do we do it? You equate this to 0. You're going to get 6x equals 5 and x equals 5 over 6. Okay, so this is your turning point, 5 over 6. How do we know if this is a minimum or maximum? Okay, look, the book has a way. I have a way. I have two ways actually in knowing. Uh, and I think there's another way as other people do. Look, I'm going to give you my way. In written, if you do my way, you should get it correct, okay? Because this is the way they do it in university. It's my mom. She taught me this way because she teaches math in uni. I'll show you how to do it. This x equals 5 over 6. It's a turning point. How do you know if it's going to be minimum or maximum? You know, if it's a minimum, that means it goes down and then it stops at the minimum and then it starts increasing after your minimum. But if it's a maximum, that means it goes up to the maximum and then it starts decreasing after the maximum. So to know if it's a minimum or a maximum, you have to know at that point, does it decrease or does it increase? How do you know if it decreases or increases? You put dy over dx greater than 0. Okay, greater than 0 means it's increasing. Okay, let's see. So dy over dx is increasing when you have to substitute. What is dy over dx? We said 6x minus 5. So you put, all you have to do, 6x minus 5 greater than 0. 5 to the other side, 6x greater than 5. 5 greater than 5. And you get x greater than 5 over 6. So when is dy over dx increasing? When it crosses 5 over 6. So that means at 5 over 6, it starts increasing. So that means before 5 over 6, it was decreasing. So what does that mean? 5 over 6 is a minimum. Okay, it's a minimum. So obviously, it's going to be increasing after it crosses 5 over 6. Like we said here, it's greater than 0. That means it's greater than 5 over 6. It's increasing when it's greater than 5 over 6. And then they're saying dy over dx is decreasing when it's less than 5 over 6. Can you prove it? Yes, you can prove it. dy over dx, we said, is 6x minus 5. Put it less than 0. Less than 0 معناتها decreasing. You can either put greater than 0 or you can put less than 0. Whatever. 6x minus 5 less than 0. 6x minus 5. It will be 6x less than 5 because you take 5 to the other side. So it will be x less than 5 over 6. So x will be, dy over dx will be decreasing before 5 over 6. So before 5 over 6, it's going to be decreasing. It's going to be negative, right? It's going to be negative. So before 5 over 6. But we said after 5 over 6, when it crosses 5 over 6, it comes greater than 0. That means it becomes positive. So that means it starts increasing again after 5 over 6. This is how you understand the derivatives, okay? For those who don't want to understand, one easy way to do it, obviously finding the derivative is easy. Okay, one easy way to know if it's a minimum or maximum, you just take 6x minus 5, you put it greater than 0. Okay, you get obviously x greater than 5 over 6. If you have greater than, that means it's a minimum. Okay, that means it's a minimum. And then if you find 6x minus 5 less than 0, and you get obviously x is less than 5 over 6, less than, again, it's a minimum. But how do you know if it's a maximum? I'll show you, I think, next question. I don't know if next question has one. Let me make sure. لا, it doesn't have a maximum. But if you have a maximum, when you equate dy over dx, when you put it greater than 0, your answer will be dy over dx. Or sorry, no, your answer will be x less than whatever, I don't know, something. Okay? So what I'm trying to say is, if you put it greater than 0 and it ends up being less than, then it's going to be a maximum. Okay? But if it's greater than, like we said over here, or less than, like over here, that means it's a minimum. That means 5 over 6 is a minimum. One example of this is like, you know, when you have your dy over dx minus 2x plus 3. When you put it greater than 0, you get minus 2x greater than minus 3. And then you get x is less than minus 3 over minus 2. Why does it become less than? Because you know when you divide by a negative number, it changes the inequality. It swaps it. So it becomes x is less than 3 over 2. So we started with greater, it ended with less than. So what does that mean? 3 over 2 is a maximum. Okay, that's how you know if it's a maximum or minimum for the people who don't want to understand the decreasing, increasing thing. Okay, if it starts with greater than, ends with less than, obviously it's a maximum. Or if it starts with greater than and ends with less than, like they swap, So if it starts with less than, ends with greater than, then obviously it's going to be also a maximum. فانت if you get the same inequality, less than or greater than, it's a minimum. If it's opposite inequalities, then you get maximum. Okay, that's just for the people who don't want to understand. They just want to memorize. There's nothing wrong with it. Again here, 4x to the power 4 minus 2x cubed. Okay, let's find the derivative. 4 times 4 is 16. X reduced by 1, 3 to the cube comes to the power of 3. Minus 2 times 3 is minus 6. X becomes squared. This is your dy over dx. So dy over dx is 16x cubed minus 6x squared. This is wrong because there's no squared. Okay, Hella, let's find the turning points. Okay, let's find the turning points. So what do? You equal it to 0. How do you solve this? You have to factor out x squared, right? You have to take out x squared. It becomes 16x minus 6 equals 0. So you have two solutions. Either x squared equals 0, or either 16x minus 6 equals 0. If x squared equals 0, you know x equals 0. If 16x minus 6 equals 0, then you get 16x equals 6, and x equals 6 over 16, which is in simplest form 3 over 8. Okay, so your turning points are 3 over 8 and x equals 0. So over here, it equals 0 for x equals 0 and x equals 3 over 8. Then they're saying less than 0 for x less than 3 over 8. Okay, usually at x equals 0, there's no minimum, there's no maximum. Okay, I think, wait, when x equals 0. Okay, أنا صراحة I don't know where I am صراحة. Wait, I think I stopped because I want to go get something. I stopped. I got the turning points are x equals 0 and 3 over 8. مهم, I actually forgot if I said this already. But you have to know whether these are minimums or maximums, right? Okay. أول شيء let's go through the options. dy over dx is less than 0. Yeah, less than 0. For x less than 3 over 8. How do you do dy over dx less than 0? You have to put in 16 شو اسمه you have to solve this يعني x squared 16x minus 6 less than 0. It will be شو اسمه you cancel out x squared, you get 16x minus 6 less than 0. You get 16x less than 6 because you took 6 to the other side. You get x less than 6 over 16, which is 3 over 8. Okay, so less than, it means same sign, minimum. So that means 3 over 8 is a minimum. And just in case they ask you. Okay, for less than is correct, yes. Okay, dy over dx is greater than 0 for x less than 3 over 8. No, we said when it's x less than 3 over 8, it's going to be less than 0. Okay, so that means, yani, before 3 over 8, we said it's less than 0, so yani it was negative. So 3 over 8 is over here. Before it, it was negative, so it's going down. Then after it, it starts going up. So it starts becoming positive after 3 over 8, right? It has a local minimum with x equals 0. For x equals 0, there's yani some stuff you have to know. Okay, we said the turning points are our critical points are x equals 0 and x equals 3 over 8. The thing is, when we got x equals 0, it's because we said x squared equals 0. If you remember, yani when factoring, we got dy over dx 16x cubed minus 6x squared. We took out, I think we took out 2x squared. 16x cubed minus, yeah, we took out 2x squared, became 8x minus 3. Well, no, and I didn't take out the 2. Mom, you could have taken out 2 also. It could make your solving easier. And I only took out x squared. But mom, it's the same thing. We said it's either 2x squared equals 0 or 8x minus 3 equals 0, because this is how you solve an equation. You have to take both sides equal 0, if you remember, yani. Okay, this is just for these people who don't know, yani. To solve for 0, to solve, yani, if you have anything equals 0, you have to take both products. 2x squared equals 0 and 8x minus 3 equals 0. Mohem, 8x minus 3 equals 0, you get x equals 3 over 8. We said that. And 2x equals 0, 2x squared equals 0, you're going to get x equals 0. Divide by 2 both sides, square root of 0, you get 0. We did this already. But why isn't 0 a turning point? Okay, it might be a critical, but it's not a turning point. Because, you know, turning point is the change from positive to negative, or from negative to positive, right? But in this case, when you have x equals 0, you have x squared equals to 0. And you know, x squared is always positive. So what does that mean? There's no change. It's positive to positive. So 0 is neither a minimum nor is it a maximum. There's no turn. No turn. No turn. Okay? Because it's positive, positive. Not only does this work with x squared, it works with x4, x6, x8, because they all have even exponents. And you know, when you have an even exponent, what does that mean? It's always positive, so there's no turning point. For أكيد, it being a local minimum of x equals 0 is wrong. Okay? That's 4.2 done. Okay, this is the 4.3 quiz. Uh, a particle move. This is the one about the speed and velocity and acceleration and displacement. A particle moves in a straight line, so its displacement s is t cubed plus 3t squared plus 6t. Okay, when is the particle at rest? Okay, أول شيء, some people will be confused. They say s equals t cubed plus 3t squared plus 6t. They'll say, and we're talking about speed because it's s. No, it's displacement. I don't know why they put displacement as s. It's honestly just, it's annoying, yeah. بس المهم, this is the displacement. They want the particle at rest, and for those of you who don't know, rest means velocity equals 0. So how will I know velocity equals 0 if I have a displacement? If I have the equation for displacement, t cubed plus 3t squared plus 6t. If I have the equation for displacement, how will I know when velocity is equal to 0? Obviously, I need to find the equation for vt, because when I'm saying velocity equals 0, that's the instantaneous, because it's only one value. If you remember the derivation path, it's x, displacement, then it goes to v, velocity, then it goes to acceleration. So we want velocity equals 0, so you have to get the velocity vt. How do we find it? Derive it. 3 times t, 3 times 1 is 3t, reduce it by 1 to t squared. 3 times 2 is 6, reduce it by 1, it's t. 1 times 6 is 6. Okay, so you get this. Okay, we want this 3t squared plus, take it up. We want this 3t squared plus 6t plus 6. We want to equal it to 0. Okay, this is a quadratic function, and we're basically trying to solve the quadratic function. Factor 3 out, you get t squared plus 2t plus 2 equals 0. Cancel the 3 on both sides. Since it's equal 0, you can just cancel. So now you have to factor t squared plus 2t plus 2 equals 0. You have to solve it. Look, if you have a calculator and you solve this, it will work. If you don't have, if your calculator doesn't solve it, you have to use the quadratic formula, which is minus b plus minus radical b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, at this point everybody should know this formula. Okay, it's the quadratic. How do we do it? First thing you have to do is find your delta, your discriminant. That's the way I taught you guys. Always find delta, the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. In this case it will be 2 squared minus 4 times 2, because a is 1, c is 2, so minus 4 times ac, 1 times 2, you cancel on, you don't have to write them. المهم, 2 squared is 4, minus 4 times 2 is minus 8, so delta equals negative 4. Okay, so it's gonna be minus b plus minus radical negative 4 over 2a. Without continuing, if delta is a negative number, you know there's no solution, right? Because you can't have a radical negative number. Okay, so immediately you can say there's no solution, put an x on everything, it's never at rest. Okay, that's why. If you put it in a calculator, it's going to give you undefined, and that's just way easier if you have a calculator. Question 2. أنا صراحة in the written I think they'll give you a question like this. Okay, they gave you the xt is 2t squared at plus 5, minus 5. The average acceleration, they want a average for t equals 3 seconds, t equals 5 seconds. Okay, if we want average acceleration, do we take at or vt? Obviously we take vt, because acceleration is equal to velocity final minus velocity initial over time final minus time initial. Okay, how do you find the vt? We derive it. 2 times 2, 4. Reduce the exponent by 1, you get t plus 8. 1 times 8 is 8, so 8. Cancel out the t, and the 5 goes. خلاص. Okay, vt equals 4t plus 8. Then we want 3 seconds and 5 seconds. So we have to substitute the t as 3 and 5. So 4 times 3 plus 8, and 4 times 5 plus 8. You get 20 and 28. So do vf minus vi over tf minus ti. It will be 28 minus 20 over 5 minus 3. Final minus initial, you get 8 over 2, which is 4. Okay, Question 3. Uh, what is the average speed between 8:30 and 9? 8:30 is over here at 120 and 9 is over here at 180. Okay, so you do 180 minus 120 over the time. Please don't put 30, please, because they're saying in hours. Okay, it's 30 minutes, but that's minutes. We want it to be hours, which is 0.5 hours. So over 0.5, you get 60 over 0.5, which is 120. Okay. Question 4. Okay, a particle's moved, they gave you the xt is 80 squared minus 5t plus 13, and its velocity at t equals 2 seconds. They only gave you one time, so obviously that's instantaneous velocity, right? So instantaneous velocity, you need to have the vt, right? So vt equals, does derive 2 times 816, reduce it by 1 comes t, 1 times minus 5 is minus 5, reduce the exponent goes, and 13 doesn't have an exponent, so it goes. So vt equals 16t minus 5. We want 2 seconds for 16 times 2 minus 5 equals 27. Okay, question 5. Uh, they gave you these are all AMS questions. Xt equals 1 over 3t cubed plus 4t minus 4. They want acceleration average, so a average during the first 2 seconds, so at 0 seconds and 2 seconds. Okay, if we want average acceleration, we need to find the vt first, which we find by 3 times 1 over 3. You know, 3 cancels 1 over 3, right? They cancel. So it's going to be 1. Reduce the exponent by 1 to be t squared. 1 times 4 is 4, and reduce the exponent, it goes, and minus 4 is gone. It doesn't have an exponent. So t squared plus 4 is your vt. Okay, we want it at 0 seconds and 2 seconds. For 0 seconds, it will be 0 squared plus 4. At 2 seconds, it will be 2 squared plus 4. You get 4 and you get 8. Do vf minus vi over tf minus ti. You get 8 minus 4 over 2, because 2 minus 0 is 2. You get 4 over 2, which is 2. Okay. Question 6. They gave you the displacement again in S. Don't know why in S. They want the distance during the third second. Okay, this is a bit tricky. Um, the distance. Distance, يعني they're talking about displacement. Okay. Uh, during the third second. During the third second, that means they're talking about the distance traveled between the second and the third second. So in between that, that's during the third second. You pass the second, and then you're going to the third second. So in between the second and the third second, how much distance did you travel? How do you do that? Obviously, to find out, you do the distance traveled in the third minus the distance in the second. How do we do that? How do you find each one? You substitute. It will be 3 cubed minus 5, 3 squared, plus 20 times 3 plus 1. And then for the second, it's 2 cubed minus 5, 2 squared plus 20 times 2 plus 1. Okay, put this in a calculator. I think I have it written over here. It's 43. You get, yeah, 43. Over here you get 43. And over here you get 29. Minus them, you get 14. And then you're gonna do 43 minus 29, which is 14. You get 14. That's how you solve this question. 7. Uh, a particle moves in a straight line, so the displacement, S again, t cubed minus 5t squared plus 20t plus 1. They want the acceleration to be 14. Okay, this is instantaneous acceleration, okay, because it's one time, okay, instantaneous. If you want instantaneous acceleration, فأكيد you need the AT, not the VT. AT. How do we find AT? AT, you need the VT. It goes X, V, A, from X to V to A. Do we have V? No, we don't. So we have to find V before we make it to A. So let's find VT, which is 3 times 1, 3, t squared. 2 times minus 5 is minus 10t plus 20, because 1 times 20, and reduce the exponent خلاص. Okay, this is your VT. هلا بدك ال AT. AT, you derive it again. 2 times 3, 6, reduced by 1, minus 10. 20 cancels, and this exponent goes. So your AT is 16 minus 10. But they're saying when the acceleration is 14. For this 16 minus 10 equals 14. What's the time going to be? Take 10 to the other side. 60 equals 24. T equals 4. Okay. Question 8. Uh, This is easy in the AMS quizzes. Between 9:30 11:30, you go 9:30, it's at 150. 11:30, it's at 300. You do 300 minus 150 over the time in hours. Between 9:30 and 11:30 is 2 hours. Okay, so over 2, which is 150 over 2, which is 75. Okay, between 7 and 9:30 is from here 7 at 0, and 9:30 is over here at 150. Over the time between 7 and 9:30 is 2 hours, 30 minutes. 30 minutes is half, right? Half an hour. So 2 and 2.5 hours. This is in every AMS quiz. You guys should be familiar with this question. 2.5, you get 60. Okay. Question 9. The maximum speed. Okay. In the exam, I think it was 56. No, I don't. I forgot, صراحة. I'll get the answer now. For the answer in the exam for this one was 56 and 672. But regardless, I'll tell you how to solve it. The maximum speed you have to do base 1 plus base 2 over 2 times height equals 63. Because they're saying the distance in total is 63, and this is a VT graph. When they talk about the distance, that means they're talking about the area. And this formula for B1 plus B2 over 2 times height is actually the area of this trapezoid. Base 1 is going to be uh, 1 hour because it's from 7 to 8. Base 2 is from 7:05 to 7:50, which is 0.75 hours because it's 45 minutes, which is 0.75 hours, over 2 times the height equals 63. You do it on a calculator, you do 63 divided by 1.75 over 2, and you'll get h is 72 in this case. But in the exam, it was 56. And then the acceleration of the train during the first 5 minutes. For part B, the acceleration during the first 5 minutes, that means they want velocity final minus velocity initial over time final minus time initial. The final velocity we said is 72 because it's over here, okay, at the 5th minute. And then the initial velocity was obviously 0, so 72 minus 0 over the time. 5 minutes is 5 minutes is we need it to be in hours. Sorry, we need it to be in hours. So it's going to be 72 over 5 divided by 60 because that's how you convert it to hours, and you're going to get 864. That's how you do it. Question 10. The acceleration from 2 minutes to 6 minutes is easy. Go from 2 minutes and 6 minutes, it's 90. So 90 minus 50 over the time, which is 4 minutes, because you want it in minutes. فعادي, you can keep it. So 50 and 90 minus 50 over 4, 40 over 4, which is 10. Okay, and question 11. Okay, the distance during 2 minutes, 4 minutes. From 2 minutes over here and 4 minutes over here, they want the distance traveled, but it's VT. So what do? You have to find the area. How do you find the area of this? This shape is not a triangle. Please don't make that mistake. It's the distance under the graph. So you have to go all the way down to 2 and all the way down to 4. Connect these. Connect them. That's a trapezoid. You can say, how's that a trapezoid? Okay, flip it to the right. Like, rotate it. It's going to look like this. And this is a trapezoid. Okay, what's this base? This base over here, it's gonna be 80, right? It's gonna be 80. What's this space over here? It's gonna be like this one over here, the space from 0 to 50, 50 at the top. Okay, and then what's the height in between 2 and 4 is 2. What do we do? 80 plus 50 over 2 times 2. Okay, why am I doing this? Because the area of a trapezoid is B1 plus B2 over 2 times height. Okay, so you'll get 130 over 2 times 2. You cancel the 2, you get 130. Okay, that's IG done. Inshallah, you guys all do good. Thank you for watching. Bye.